cover story conversation. We have back with us one of our favorite guests. We have Suhel Seth, political commentator, marketing maven, and a columnist. Suhel, good to have you back on the show for a
Thank
one-on-one
you.
conversation. And today there's a lot that's been happening. The Modi government has celebrated its 100 years. Delhi has a new chief minister in place.
100
There are
days.
elections.
I wish they would imagine it's 100 years, but 100 days.
Yes, I think I'm going to be trolled for that one, but 100 days. Thanks for correcting me. So let's talk first about the Modi government's track record. And, from just a little observation from my side, so I found that the government didn't celebrate or mark those 100 days more than the opposition. The opposition really led the narrative on this, and then the government had to feel Amit Shah and Ashwini Vaishnav, or they were planning to feel them, but basically the narrative was more dominated what the government hasn't done than what the government has done.
So what is interesting is that now, post the 2024 elections, it's the opposition that is setting the narrative. And the BJP is scurrying to respond, which tells you a lot about BJP's communication skills, both as a party and as the government. To be fair, Narendra Modi from 2014 till now has achieved a lot. But as I've said earlier on your program, what has happened is that those achievements have been dimmed and ebbed because of the surround sound, which is totally against the spirit of India. Even now you have people who are eating beef or purportedly eating beef getting lynched. You have the same Hindu-Muslim narrative, the Waqf board controversy. These things don't augur well. And what happens is the opposition is therefore given a lever, a handle to basically, flog the government. And the government then makes a very weak comeback, which to my mind is silly, because what the government has done, it has been unable to communicate. If you look at, let's say, the four pillars of any country, let's talk about the economy. There is no question, Priya. I deal with the biggest corporates in India. Every corporation, whether it's big, small, medium, is delighted with the government. Yes, are there issues? Of course there are issues. There's the raid raj, which is at times vendetta-driven. There is the GST, confusion. But by and large, people are happy because in the union cabinet, per se, there is zero corruption. Is there corruption down the line? I don't know, and there must be. So if you look at our growth, if you look at startups, if you look at the young who are now not tied down by the so-called matrimonial advertising narrative where they have to be an IAS or an IPS or a doctor or a lawyer. People are becoming entrepreneurs. You have the stories of Zomato. You have stories of, Zerodha. These are all stories which are indicative of an economy that is willing to support young talent, young people. Today, India has 127 unicorns. These are great stories. Companies are doing better. N. Chandrasekaran of the Tatas, 3 days ago in an interview to the Financial Times, he says that the growth story of India has never been more exciting. And, Chandra is not the kind of person who will say things off the cuff or to please the government. He's a very measured human being. So for a Chandra to say this about the government, to my mind, is a great vindication of what the government has done. If you look at the way the economy has panned out, even for, yes, there are glitches. I can tell you, yes. MSME is suffering. It is suffering. But look, to manage a country which has then come out of COVID and to bring it back on its rails is an arduous task. Jobless growth is there. But the fact is that you and I are also subsidizing to the less privileged, their rations. So there are issues with the economy, but by and large, the economy is moving well. Let's look at international diplomacy. International diplomacy, the Ukraine snafu and the Russian snafu apart, India is at the high table. The fact that this week, as we speak, Narendra Modi will be attending the Quad in Delaware is an indication of India's arrival at the high table. Now, many people in the opposition may say, but it's not Narendra Modi's arrival, it's India's arrival. Fair enough.
I was going to say that.
Fair enough. But he's the Prime Minister of India. And he's an elected Prime Minister. He's not a nominated Prime Minister like Dr. Manmohan Singh was, who, by the way, I have a lot of regard and respect for. Then let's look at the internal security. we have never been more secure. Are there glitches? Of course there are glitches. But by and large, the security of this country has been fantastic. People are now behaving themselves. There's a tremendous, internal security mechanism in place. And the fourth is, to my mind, everyone has been, commenting on, oh, but the judiciary is compromised. This is compromised. Where? Just the fact that Narendra Modi attends a Ganapati Puja at D.Y. Chandrachud's house doesn't make the judiciary less weak. The judiciary is slamming the government when it needs to and when it feels befitting. So if I were to look at all these four verticals or four pillars, I think they're doing a great job. So I'm not too worried about, but what will Modi do? Then comes this tricky gorilla in the room issue. Oh, is he a weak prime minister? Has he been weakened? Is he now weakened because, they're taking back, they're rolling back? But if you remember, both in Vajpayee's regime and Manmohan Singh's regime, because they were coalition governments, there were more rollbacks than roll-ons. But history is a country with no citizens, so people don't remember. And I don't think rolling back is, to my mind, a weakness. Actually, it's a strength. But again, the BJP is unable to communicate that. Can you imagine if I were the BJP, I would say every rollback is actually a listening forward device. We're listening to the aspirations of the people. But they don't say that. So the opposition says, see, we told you, aur unhone kar diya. So there are two struggling issues with India today. Our global narrative has been very skewed because of what I mentioned to you. And number two, the government is unable to articulate clearly, because what it is doing is it is sloganeering rather than communicating. It is creating acronyms rather than creating a narrative. It is telling people, bhai, ab ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, ye ho gaya. But there's no. And now you've seen the latest issue about Gadkari. I flagged this off on your program earlier. There's no point building highways which crumble. There's no point building roads which have potholes. So our infrastructure, to my mind, is the biggest challenge that Narendra Modi has to face and Narendra Modi has to address. Does he work hard? Answer is yes. Is he committed to the narrative of India? The answer is yes. Is his politics not liked by everyone? The answer is yes. But no one's politics was. At least there has been a move forward. And I'm, Priya, basically an optimist. I genuinely believe Modis will come and go, Amit Shahs will come and go, Rahul Gandhis will come and go. The indefatigable spirit of India, the aspirations of Indians, and the ability of Indians to look for pastures of prosperity and greenery will never go away.
Said a lot to take in there, but I agree with you on most, except you yourself pointed out that while the corporates may be happy, the big corporates with the India, the middle class, you and I, which are subsidizing all the schemes, because it's always the middle who gets crunch in all these big statements that the Prime Minister is making. Why is he ignoring the middle class? Second point on your communication part, you said that they are not able to communicate. Is it because the communication is left to only the big two, Prime Minister and Amit Shah? Where is the second rung of the BJP?
You have hit the nail on the head. There's an old communication strategy which I've always imparted as a lesson for people. If you make the top man the agent of communication, he also becomes the agent of ridicule, the agent of rebuttal, and the agent of reversal. You cannot have a general get onto the field. But constantly Narendra Modi is being made to do that. Now, a lot of people might say, but that's how Modi works. Fair enough. But now the chickens are coming home to roost. Because the tragedy is, let's say if Priya Sehgal is the only person in NewsX who is, who's the face of NewsX, anything that happens with NewsX will fall at your doorstep, whether you like it or not. Now you've got to say that, look, I'm at NewsX, but person X is the person you should talk to, or person Y is the person you should talk to. That's number one. Number two, I think there's a lot of fear of Modi within both the government and the BJP. Modi's mechanism of working is, to my mind, I would call it the human brand building effort. He's always assiduously built his brand. And by the way, that has helped. Today, no matter what you might say, people remember Narendra Modi. They vote for Modi. Now, the tragedy is if there's a leaking water pipe in Haryana, that will also be blamed onto Modi. That is something that Modi has to address. Number one. Number two, Modi also recognizes, like David Ogilvy famously said, there are no statues of committees in any parks. You remember individuals. I don't remember an organization. I remember the individual. So today, Modi is that individual. So he has to face the flak as much as he garners the credit. Now, the reality is, when they lose an election, JP Nadda's photograph will come on television screens, not his. When they win an election, his photograph will come on television screens and not Nadda's. Thereby hangs a tale. So you've got to actually understand what are the mechanisms and the processes that both the party and the government follow. Add to that is the parallel narrative that the RSS is running. And the RSS at times makes statements which allude to the fact that they don't believe in man worship or individual worship. But the reality is, when people vote, you remember better than I do, I've always said that Jawaharlal Nehru was one of our finest prime ministers. And we remember Jawaharlal Nehru. We don't remember the kitchen cabinet before or the cabinet after 1947. We remember Mahatma Gandhi. We don't remember the entire Congress party. We remember Netaji. We don't remember the Congress plenary. So if you come down to today's world, it's everywhere you remember individuals as you will. Is he a strong man? Of course. He has always adopted a muscular strategy, be it internally or externally. That's the way he is. And he's getting elected. You know, you might laugh at the fact that, okay, from 400, and if you remember, you and I discussed that 400 was as bad or as good as India Shining. You know, it reeked of arrogance, it reeked of overconfidence, and it mocked and ridiculed the powers of the voters. But having said that, you now see that Modi is still the prime minister. But I have to say, and I've written about it in the Hindustan Times on an editorial, the making of Rahul Gandhi is happening, whether you like it or not. Yes, does he have flaws? Of course he does. All of us do. His problem is he's unable to control what he says. And when he says something, he believes that other people have not understood, and then there is no clarification. I'll give you an example. That Panun said something about, oh, we support Rahul Gandhi because he's articulated the problem of the Sikhs in India. All that was required was a clarification from someone as erudite as Jairam Ramesh, but it never came, which then gives the BJP a handle. Today, India is fighting a battle of individuals. The time needs to come when India will fight a battle of values, will fight a battle of what people stand for and not what the people themselves are.
Yeah, but that's, I think that is a very good point that you made. But, you spoke about Rahul Gandhi also, the rise of Rahul. It's obviously at the cost of Narendra Modi because, that's how politics works. Do you see what Rahul or the Congress did to Modi and made Modi? Now Narendra Modi is returning that compliment to Rahul. From a pappu, he's made him into a leader of reckoning.
Absolutely. In fact, if you recall, Priya, there was a discussion on your program with Pavan Verma, where I said that every time you respond to Rahul Gandhi, you elevate his stature. Look, there's an old saying, I can ignore you or I can react to you. But when I'm totally indifferent, it's the worst insult. But the BJP has not been able to. The other thing, the problem with the BJP is that they are possessed about historical anecdotal fact. I've said earlier, it's the only party which makes dead people fight. Nehru versus Patel. Both are dead. What's the point of making them fight? What's the point of, talking about the emergency? Because the emergency was on June 25, 1975. We are now almost 40 years or more past that. Who remembers and who cares? People are going to measure you by in today's contextuality. And in today's contextuality, there are problems. Is the press free? No, but the press never was. But you're unable to articulate that. You then take it back to the emergency. You don't talk about anything else. Anyone says, oh, but, Modi's being harsh on person X. You say, but Nehru was harsh on Sahir Ludhianvi. Half the Johnnies in India don't even know who Sahir Ludhianvi was or what he wrote in terms of the lyrics in Pyasa. So the conundrum that the BJP is faced with is contemporary contextuality. How do they make things contextual? How do they make things contemporary? And how do they make things simple? For a party that has all the machinery for communication, its communication is perhaps its Achilles heel. And that is what it needs to address.
I'm going to keep this conversation going, but after a short break, and we're going to also take a look at the Aam Aadmi Party and Delhi's new chief minister, but after a short break. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation with Suhel Seth. So we were talking about the art of communication. Just, before I go on to Delhi's chief minister, how do you see the Congress communication? Are they suffering from the same problem? Because again, you explained, like Rahul says something, but it is not explained later by Jairam or somebody else. Is the Congress BJP both top heavy in their communication?
Yeah, but the Congress is very smart now. The Congress has got their smarts as far as their digital communication is concerned. The Congress has got their smarts as far as their public persona is concerned. And it's always easier for a David to strike out at a Goliath. I call these disruptor brands. It's easy for Rahul Gandhi to disrupt. All I need to do is point out the flaws and say that, but you guys are running the government, so don't blame us. But what I'm saying is, and this is where there's a bit of an issue in my mind, whether the Congress agrees or not, I don't care. Every time Rahul Gandhi goes abroad, the narrative must be controlled. Because what is happening is anything that he says, and it may be a fair comment. I'm an absolutist as far as free speech is concerned. But anything that he now says as leader of opposition, people say, yaar, agar tumko itni nafrat hai Bharat ki democracy ke saath, then why are you even in parliament? Why are you the leader of opposition? So today, because of the duality of his roles, both within the Congress and as leader of opposition, that narrative has to be measured. Where it cannot be measured, where he cannot control himself for whatever reason, then there needs to be a clarification, which he doesn't necessarily need to issue, but the party needs to issue. But the party doesn't issue that. Poor Sam Pitroda was thrown under the bus, then obviously reinstated. Now, the point is that whatever Sam Pitroda said was his way of articulation. Now, he was not the first person to be racist within our country. For years, we've been saying anyone from the Northeast is, chinky, anyone from, wo kallu hai, wo ye hai. We've been like this all our lives. When Sam Pitroda highlights it, it gets stuck onto the Congress, which is why the Congress had to rush and issue a clarification. They could have very well issued a clarification now. When that Panun said that, the narrative on Sikhs by Rahul Gandhi is correct. And it isn't. Rahul Gandhi knows that. And Rahul Gandhi will never be a supporter of the Khalistan movement, which actually took away his grandmother. So, he's not that stupid to allow something as personal to influence his public persona just for votes. So, I don't, like I said on a program last night, anyone who calls Rahul Gandhi anti-national is being as stupid as saying that, Modi is working against the idea of India. The idea of India in its natural existence is about plurality. It's about diversity of thought and diversity of deed. When you look at the idea of India, and all you need to do is look at this or read this brilliant book, The Idea of India by Sunil Khilnani, and you will understand that the dichotomies of India is what make India interesting. Mark Tully famously said, everything you see about India, the opposite is equally true. That's who we are. But again, no one is able to articulate this narrative, either in Parliament or outside. Parliament has become an even worse fish market. The public discourse has weakened to such a level which is despicable. It's not about values, it's about abuse. So, these are some of the course corrections. And I'm a great believer, Priya, that this too shall pass. This also will course correct.
This too should pass, but is the rhetoric falling, or has it, come to some equilibrium after the recent election
No, it's
results?
continuing to fall. It's continuing to fall. There was a time when you disagreed without being disagreeable. Today, you're being disagreeable and disagree. Listen, There's an old saying of mine, I'm sure other people must have said it. In life, always keep the door ajar, never shut the door. Because you never know when you might want to go back in to either celebrate, rescue, or sequester. So it's always important to keep the door ajar. We in our politics have started shutting the door on and at people. That is despicable. A, B, Parliament, it is the job of the government to run Parliament. It is the job of every parliamentarian to run Parliament. If you remember, when Arun Jaitley was alive, the beauty was that Jaitley was able to talk to various political parties because, of his persona. So you were able to bring allies together, including opponents. Today, it's a fractious war. It's almost as if, I don't care, my way or the highway. A country can never be run like that, especially a democracy. And we saw that. What happened on January 6, 2020, with the Capitol Hill in America was an indication where Trump had actually shut the door on the Congress and the Senate. You don't need that kind of divisiveness in this country anymore.
So, a sort of fictional committee that one can suggest to break the log jams, from each side. Whom would you suggest? Would be a Shashi Tharoor, maybe from the Congress, who from the BJP? Are there some individuals?
BJP, I would say Nitin Gadkari and Nadda. I'm not saying because they are pleasant people, but because they are people who have the ability to reach out. You see, outreach can only happen when the willingness to reach out happens. You can't say there'll be outreach without the willingness to reach out. And therein lies the dilemma.
Fair enough. And I don't see that happening. The rhetoric is only going to get worse. The coming assembly elections. Do you see the next parliament session, any better than the first one?
No, because they will bring up Rahul Gandhi's United States trip. And then he will bring up something, and they will bring up something, and the Waqf board will be rammed through one nation, one election. Now you tell me, which sensible man will oppose one nation, one election? The amount of money we spend on elections, the amount of freebies that are given because of impending elections, the way the voters are treated. I mean, it is bizarre.
The logistics, they can't hold elections with Maharashtra and Haryana.
Now that is so for a country that is today the world leader in digitization, it cannot thrash this process issue. See, there are always two things in life, process and purpose. If your purpose is honest, the process will be easy. But if your purpose is dishonest, you can never invent a better mousetrap.
Finally, let's have a quick thing on the Delhi government. We have a new chief minister in place. Where do you see the Aam Aadmi Party headed? Has this jail stint helped Arvind Kejriwal's perception among the public of Delhi, or do you think it's going to be something that's going to be held against him?
I've always said, my grandmother in Punjabi used to use a word called meesna, which means he's so deft, he's so clever that you can't figure him out. That's Arvind Kejriwal. Let me tell you, Arvind Kejriwal is the only true political match for Narendra Modi. Now, people might laugh why I'm saying this, but he is. And I'll tell you why. He understands how to become a victim. He understands victimhood like no one does. He understands how to play to the gallery. He understands media, and he understands timing. In politics, there's only one thing that matters, timing. If Arvind Kejriwal had resigned while he was in jail, he would have been forgotten. It's what I used to tell television anchors when they change jobs. I said, when you're going to your new job, immediately start. If they don't see you on telly every night, they will forget you. What Arvind Kejriwal has done is by installing, and I use the word with great care, installing Atishi as Delhi's chief minister, his relevance will remain. Atishi is the khadao which Ram left behind. And to my mind, it will still be driven by Kejriwal. Kejriwal will now concentrate, never give enough shray, enough opportunity and enough time to your enemies, because then they start the plotting and the planning. And, now it's happening. And mark my words, Aam Aadmi Party, you hate them, you disagree with them, but give them credit. In the last 10 years or 15 years, for them to come where they have is truly remarkable. Now, you and I may or may not agree. Ask the average Joe in Delhi. He loves it. Because what Kejriwal has done, he's gone one step forward. He's understood that India is a country of freedom fighters. We fight for anything that's free. So all the freebies that he's giving are helping.
Yes.
So, people are joyous. So no one cares if Minto Bridge gets flooded. Because as long as the Jhuggi Jhopdis have free electricity, he has an abundance of water, the mohalla clinics are working, the education system has been revamped, people are happy. See, ultimately, and if you talk about the middle class, Pawan Verma's book, The Great Indian Middle Class,
Yes.
defining moment about the middle class. India's middle class is the most selfish class of people. It is also the most hardworking, it is also the most aspirational, and it is always unhappy. It is unhappy because it believes that it is the pivot of Indian society. So they may have reasons to be unhappy, but the middle class is always asking, never giving. To quote that Johnny Ori, they are livers, they're not givers in a manner of speaking.
How much do you read, Suhel? I'm very impressed with all the quotations that have happened.
One book a day.
And you read, you don't flip, you actually read it.
No, I actually read.
Wow, that is amazing.
I'm just going to start a book called The Conclave, which I ask all your readers to read. It's coming out as a film, but it's a delightful book. I'm starting it now. It's a delightful book on the Catholic Church, on the Vatican, on the papacy, and how, life moves. So the problem, Priya, is scholarship is also missing in our politics. How many genuine students? Scholarship tempers the mind and it tames the heart. In this case, without scholarship, they are running amok. Scholarship allows you to look at contrarian views. It allows you to disagree without being disagreeable. And I would hope that we would get back the scholars that we had in our politics, whether it was Dr. Ambedkar, whether it was Pandit Nehru, whether it was Narasimha Rao, whether it was Vajpayee. People say, why was Vajpayee successful? Not because he was a Democrat at heart. No, he was a poet. He understood pathos as much as he understood performance. He understood the nitty-gritties of human behavior as much as he understood the aspirations of a young democracy. That's why Vajpayee was who he was. That's why Nehru, to say Nehru was a liberal, no. He was a liberal because his thinking was liberal. He allowed people from all walks of life to enjoy the newly found freedom that India had gained. It was the embrace of liberalism which allowed him to be who he was. In Vajpayee's case, it was his affinity to understand the arts, to understand literature, and then to put all of it in context and see how could we have a happy India. And I hope that scholarship returns to India and to Indians.
Thank you, Suhel, for that note. I couldn't agree with you more. This has been even though I must tell our viewers, early in the morning we have Suhel. I think I'm still waking up, but he's still all sharp.
I get up at 4. For me, this is half a day.
4 a.m. Well, which I think explains. What time do you sleep?
So when my wife, daughter, and when I'm in Goa, I go to bed at about 7:30 in the evening. Otherwise, about 8:39.
When you're not on television debates, that is.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so thank you so much for this conversation and hope to catch you again soon.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.